our pillows are not color coordinated.
Well, we did laundry, so now we don't have our Outlander pillows, our plaid pillowcases on here now. I have to give you pillows with a different pillowcase because you're a pillow stealer. So if I have a different kind of pillowcase on my pillows, then I can, without controversy, say, you have my pillow. If you have one of these, then you have my pillow.
Hello, bedheads. Welcome to Outlandish, Outlander, Season 03, Episode 09, Outlandish, Outlander, BedVlogs. Sweetie, start us off.
I have notes, because again, this week we have to try and...
She has notes, I don't. No editing time. Super quick.
Well,
clip.
Family and freelance work have interfered this weekend for me having 6 hours to edit this, so we're going to try to talk shorter than, the usual hour that we chat about the show.
She's only going to give the first one half of every sentence, because that will cut.
No, I just plan to try to be more organized. The title was The Doldrums, and it was all about how they lose the wind and they're stranded out in the middle of the ocean for weeks and weeks.
They lost their steam, and is that how come there was no steamy sex scene in this one? Because they lost their steam.
There was a quickie sex scene. I mean, the thing is, Jamie's being all... He's, first of all, terrified of Leary, his ex-wife, or I guess she really never was his wife because he was always married to Claire. He doesn't really need to get a divorce because his marriage was never legal. But he's worried, that she's going to completely freak that her daughter, Marsley, has gone off with Fergus. So he's trying to maintain, Marsley's chastity. And in doing that, he doesn't get to sleep with Claire.
Surely the child is texting her parents daily, promptly, with iMessages and FaceTime calls.
Well, she said she sent a letter. I would love to know what's in that letter. Hey, Mom, run off with Fergus. See you later. I'll be fine.
How?
I mean, I felt like this episode had certain things to do, and it compressed the story a lot, and it did them fairly well. It just wasn't the kind of episode I'm likely to go watch again and again and again. I just don't tend to do that. Doesn't mean I didn't like it, and I loved the part with Tien show.
Was this the David Lynch monologue?
Yeah. Why are you calling it a David Lynch monologue? Because it seemed to make no sense at the time.
David Lynch is batshit crazy and has his characters say and do batshit crazy things.
Well, I thought it was really interesting what they did with that, because at some point in the book, some pages of poetry or something that he's written do go overboard. But I think it's in an entirely different context. And he's my vote for the MVP of the episode, because there's been so much speculation and worry about how they were going to deal with that character and whether it was going to be racist and whether or not he was too caricatured in the book. And the idea that he saved the day, he had said to Claire, like they had this beat where he says, once I tell my story, I have to let it go. And then he decides that at that moment that he is going to save Hayes. He's seen the bird flying, and in a minute I'll tell you I thought that was some totally other thing related to the book when he saw the bird flying. But he sees the bird flying. He knows that if he can just stall everyone for a few minutes, that it will rain. And after he gives this whole speech that he doesn't respect them, that he thinks that all these Westerners are just a bunch of assholes that don't recognize his culture or his heritage, but he's willing to sacrifice his whole story and throw it to the ocean in order to stall for a few minutes to get everybody's attention and save Hayes. Amazing. I thought it was amazing.
I just remember him saying some batshit crazy stuff and saying David Lynch must have written that for him.
Well, he's just telling his story. He's saying, that's his story, that he was invited to be a most humble servant of the Empress, but he would have had to been castrated, and he doesn't want to because he loved women, and he kind of goes on a little bit in detail about how much he loves the sexuality of women.
In some batshit crazy kind of ways.
Well, he's getting the attention of the men. They're about ready to throw Hayes overboard, and they stop and start listening to him. And then he tells his story, and he stands up on the edge of the boat. The thing is, I've read the book, and I'll tell you what I thought he was going to do. I thought he was going to jump in. It's a moment where they took something that happened in the book, but they reconfigured it in such a way that it made it suspenseful even for someone that's read the book. And the reason he jumps overboard is he captures, I don't remember how he does it, but he captures a pelican. And he keeps this pelican with him on the boat, and he trains it to fish for him. I think maybe he lassos it, and then he has to jump in after it to get it or something. So I thought that he was going to dive off the edge of the boat and make everyone think, well, they'd sacrificed him, but then they were going to save him. And so maybe they would have their cake and eat it too. There was a bit too much realism for me, I think.
It did not make you sick to your stomach?
Well, funnily enough, I was hungry all evening because I didn't eat much dinner because I'd had, like, we went to a wine tasting and with a bunch of tons of hors d'oeuvres in the afternoon. So I hadn't eaten much dinner. And then I kept thinking, I want to go down and have a snack or something. And then when I was watching the episode, I thought, wow, I'm glad I didn't have a snack, because all that retching, and then Claire having to pull out her scarf to cover her face because it stunk so much down there, that was
Sweetie,
a little too realistic for me.
Sweetie, I have seen Monty Python and the Meaning of Life and the projectile vomiting restaurant scene, so this ain't nothing.
Yeah, I did not need...
If someone out there, I don't know if anyone who watches Outlander watches Monty Python.
I didn't like it when she went to check that guy and she looked to see if he had the rash on his stomach, and then she kind of like went a little further down his abdomen and poked a little bit, and then she was like, yeah, not good. And she like covered him back up, and then she went back up to the head of the porpoise, the poor kid who was now the boss because everybody else had died.
There was a porpoise?
Porpoise was the name of the ship, the English ship, the Man of War.
I saw the George C. Scott movie with the intelligent speaking porpoises.
No, this was the name of the ship.
Was that the crossover of this?
Maybe. And she says to the head of the porpoise, yeah.
Day of the Dolphin.
She said, yeah, pretty much everybody who's sick is going to die. Oh, you realize that it's really the wilderness in a way. You know, when the head of the ship says, look, I need the men to believe this. Doesn't matter whether it's true. If they believe this, they can do their job better. Actually, that would be a good crossover with North Dallas 40, which we watched this morning.
Movie night to educate the young child.
It doesn't matter what's true. It matters what the football players believe to allow them to pump themselves up and do their job. You know, that was true of the sailors. If it makes them feel more confident, then they will be more confident. Like that little poem that Charles Sterling read about how if you think you've failed, you've failed. So, okay. So these are my notes. I'll tell you what my notes are. Some of them we've covered already.
Only half sentences each.
Okay. I wrote a note. It was too compressed at the front, I thought. Where are they?
That's because they ate in little small doses so they could upchuck in big doses.
I mean at the beginning where it's like, yeah, we're on this boat already. Like it starts out, they're already with Cousin Jared getting a boat and figuring out how they're going to go save Ian.
They had to get to all that non-projectile vomiting.
I felt like not only was there just a huge skip for you to think, okay, what happened once they saw Ian got captured, and now all of a sudden they've gone to Cousin Jared and they're getting this boat. I just felt like there was so much ground you had to imagine had happened that if you're a book reader, you kind of know, okay, eventually they're going to end up with Jared getting a boat. But
the irony is LV just spent 10 times, Sweet just spent 10 times as long recapping the beginning of the
as it
part
took. It was very compressed. You had skipped a ton of material that you just sort of had to imagine. And I expected that they were in France, and I thought, wow, like, how'd they get to France? How'd all this happen? But then later when he said, oh, we're going to stop in at St. Ives, then that made me think they had to be starting from somewhere in Scotland, because they have to be starting from somewhere in Scotland, because Fergus has to arrive with Marsley. Next comment I wrote down was Marsley, who I always thought was called Marsali when I listened to the book tapes and read the book. But there's a lot of conflict between her and Claire, because as she says, Claire's a hooer, and ruined her mother's life, and now all of a sudden she's got to share a room with her. There's a lot of nice gradual acceptance that goes on between Claire and Marsley in the book that obviously they don't have time for in the TV show. And I really felt like they just had lost all possible time for dealing with that. Did you get a sense of chemistry between Fergus and Marsley? I didn't. I wanted to see. They have to grow on me, I think. I mean, I love Fergus in general in the books. I love Fergus, and so far I like Fergus in the story. But I kind of liked Marsley and how feisty she was with Jamie.
It was no William Hurt, Kathleen Turner.
Well, Jamie wasn't going to let that happen, but did you get a sense that they were even hot for each other?
There was no body heat.
No. Did you get a sense of that? No. Are you just being silly, or are you answering me seriously?
Actually, I do know from the stats of the people who get the Facebook feed, ads, that the audience of Outlander actually isn't mature enough, probably, to remember North Dallas 40 and Monty Python. Time to say goodnight, Gracie.
You know I never do that.
Tune in next week to Outlandish Outlander episode 3010.
There's no 3010, it's just 310. It's 309 and then it's 310.
Episode.
Yeah, because you don't want to have 4 digits. You got 3 digits.
s03e10.
Exactly.